Hey again, welcome back to my Loft Games room and another video clip for you. It's pretty random. It's quite clear that I am new to this, so I am using these clips as a learning experience, but hopefully you get some benefit and ideally enjoyment from them. We had a fantastic little gathering over the weekend. We're calling it Resurrection 3, which is a tournament. And Resurrection is a series of events I'm running normally in Battlefield Hobbies in Daventry. If you join either the Resurrection group on Facebook or the Warhammer Fantasy 6th edition group, you will with little effort find all that you need to know. So I recorded this clip the day after the Resurrection event, so it's not a live recording, but I have recreated what happened pretty faithfully, certainly faithfully enough for you to know what's what. And the reason I'm filming it for you is because I've played a hell of a lot of games and what's happened just doesn't come up very often. So I thought you might find it interesting how we deal with buildings in Warhammer Fantasy, but specifically shooting at them with some big bore artillery. So I shall play the clip and I'll basically let it play through, but I have one or two comments to make, so I shall play it now. In this video clip we're addressing something else that came up in the weekend. Not a problem at all, just something that when I was playing in my very first game against Dave, known as Dave Warhammer, on the Facebook group, it was kind of a learning game. Dave had an Empire army, and bear in mind now this is a recreation and an excuse to show off my terrain, but the two main pieces of terrain are pretty accurately placed. On the hill there we have an Empire cannon, and in the middle there we have the poor knights who are getting a very hard time from our dear friends in the ruined building. There I have some Skaven Jezzails firmly entrenched in an old ruin, which is classed as a building rather than a linear obstacle or anything. So they were having a field day shooting at these poor knights, because Jezzails are absolutely the knight's worst nightmare. The cannon had been previously busy shooting on the far side of the table. As I said, this isn't the actual table, of course, where the bulk of my army was, and Dave was quite sensibly trying to pick off my warp lightning cannon and numerous other things. He was quite way over on the right flank, so he had some lovely shots, and of course being on the hill. But I was equally happy with my rats in the building, until Dave mentioned on one turn, I don't recall which, it doesn't really matter, for reasons I don't recall, he was pushed for a shot and he asked about shooting the Skaven. And of course we all know that had they been in the open in a nice line, he would have hit one or two at best, because the cannon has effectively a laser line as a template, and anything it passes through will hit. But these are in a building, and although we didn't discuss it beforehand, normally if you do have buildings on the table, you should make a little note to say what type of building they are, where the windows and doors are. But crucially, and I mean you can decide among yourselves, there is a chart in the Warhammer book. I just jump in here and show this chart to you. It's on the side here, which I've cropped out of the big red book. I don't know how many of you have paid much attention to it. I will stick my hand up and say that I haven't paid a huge amount of attention to it, and that's from me. And as those of you who know me, I have a large collection of buildings, so you'd think me more than anyone would know them intimately. It has cropped up more often recently, but it's a good time to show you. As I said at the introduction, it's a pretty random video clip. It's certainly not a priority to those learning, but I hope some of you will find it interesting. Anyhow, on that chart you can see what I'm about to allude to in the main clip, that different buildings have different characteristics assigned to them. normally you don't discuss this before a game, but I would like to see buildings used more and more, and the reason for this is that in the campaign I'm running for Resurrection, there's going to be so much fighting in villages and, well, yeah, certainly in villages and towns, but we're not talking Mordheim type built up areas here. But I really want to see buildings play more of a part, because as a rule buildings are just something you move your units around. Very, very few people entertain going into them, and that's a shame, because I mean, comparing fantasy to real life, you can't help it. But in reality, if you had a building, it's a strong point. You pile in, you've got hard cover, people tend not to charge you, and you can march block, so there's lots of positives. Anyhow, that's the little chart. I don't recall what page it's on. The building chapters after chariots, if memory serves. So let's get back to the main clip. That gives you some pointers. You should assign a toughness value to each building. So clearly something that's quite strong and fortified will be on the higher end of the scale. Something that's a little battered, and it just so happens that where the Jezzails are is in a pretty poor state. So we decided, because we forgot to do it before the battle, as I mentioned, this was Dave's first game in a long time, so I didn't want to I didn't want to overawe him with too many rules, although he did very well, because there's a hell of a lot to learn, as we well know. We assigned a value, I think it was toughness 6 and possibly 4 or 5 wounds. So Dave's cannon lined up. He guessed short, but the 2 bounces were beautiful, and the cannon ball smacked into the building. He easily caused wounds, which seems like a funny thing to say about a building, and he destroyed it. So when that happens, each model in the building has to take their basic armour saves, no modifiers, and if they make the save, they're fine. So out of my 7 Jezzails, I needed 6s. And before you mention, I'm aware that Jezzails have a better save against missiles, but I just made the decision that it wasn't actually the cannonball that hit them. The cannonball destroyed the building, so it's the falling masonry and timber beams is the problem. So they only had a save of 6, which one of them made out of 7. And it'll come as no surprise that the solitary sniper failed the ensuing panic test and scarpered off the table. So that's it. If you're playing with buildings, maybe you all do it already and I'm the exception, but a quick chat, especially if there's some big hitters on the table, a quick chat to say that's toughness 7, that's toughness 6 and 3 wounds or whatever, just makes the game flow more easily. Anyhow, thanks for watching. Okay, that's it folks. Repeating myself, but I know that's very random, but I am just trying to get a grip with how the video works, and you're probably aware I'm using OSB, which is, I mean, it's a wonderful program, so I hope you will be patient while I get to grips with this, and if you have any pointers about well, the quality of my video or anything you can do to assist me, it would be much appreciated, so you can stick that in the comment section. Or if you have any suggestions what you'd like to see. I'm going to keep the clip short to begin with, but we can move on to battle reports, and oh my goodness, there's so much more we can do. So until the next clip, thank you very much for watching if you stayed this far, and good night.